Hello, welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto. Today we're going to talk about that Ford dual clutch transmission class action fiasco in California. And by that I mean this is a legal fiasco. And as a lawyer, I can use that term correctly. So I talked a while back before about the dual clutch transmissions in the Fords. A couple of vehicles for a couple of years had a thing called a dual clutch transmission. It behaves differently than an automatic transmission. But I've had people say, well, Steve, of course they behave differently. It's a dual clutch transmission versus a regular automatic transmission. But the funny thing is that they tell you, well, yeah, you can just drive this thing like a regular automatic transmission. It's not like it has an actual pedal you got to work like a typical clutch transmission. So the weird thing is, I remember when I first started hearing about these cases in my office, people would call me. They say, Steve, I got this vehicle. It's a Ford Focus or Ford Fiesta. And the transmission slams into gear, it revs up before it catches, does all kinds of crazy stuff. And I brought it in the first time, and they said, oh, we have to reprogram something. I brought it in the second time, they go, we got to replace something. Third time I brought it in, they go, oh, we got to replace the valve body or something. And the fourth time, they go, there's nothing wrong with it. It's how you're driving it. And the weird thing is, this is one of those situations where it's really annoying when you know something's wrong with your car and the person at the dealership is lying to your face. And I had so many funny stories I can tell you, but they're not funny in that sense. But I had a client tell me that he went into the dealership. This is someone I know very well. It's actually a relative. And went into the dealership and said, hey, my vehicle is doing this. This is the third time I brought it in. And the write-up person looked at him like he was an idiot and goes, describe it to me. I've never heard of that before. And the customer goes, that's impossible. All these cars do this. No, really, seriously? And she's pretending to pay attention and write something down. So the person I know goes and sits in the waiting room. There's like 7 people in there. And just on a whim goes, anybody here with a dual clutch transmission and a Ford Focus or a Fiesta? And all their hands went up. So either none of them were written up by the one write-up person out there, or that person out there just lying to people wholesale. So it's the problem. I'm sorry if you got one of these cars. There is no fix. It's the weirdest thing. Ford put millions of these cars on the road knowing there's no fix. But if the car broke down in the right time frame, depending what state you're in, it might be a lemon law claim. If you don't have a lemon law claim, you might have some other kind of claim based on your state's consumer protection laws, and it depends on how good those are. Some states are very, very good, like California or Wisconsin. Other states, not so good. So what we're talking about right now is the class action lawsuit is winding its way through the California court system. And I got this from the Detroit Free Press, I believe, or the Detroit News. Sorry, I forgot which one I was looking at. And this would be the Free Press, the one I delivered as a child. More than 1.9 million unhappy customers who purchased or leased a Ford Focus or Fiesta say the company lied to unload the cars with faulty transmissions on unsuspecting buyers and then blamed the drivers for problems they experienced. And that is an actual, I didn't speak to all 1.9 million people, but from the cross sections I saw, that's it right there. As a result, Ford Motor Company faces a potential $4 billion liability, according to lawyer Ryan Wu. And this is something he said last month during a U.S. Court of Appeals hearing during a heated discussion with the judges on the panel. He was trying to convince them that on April 8th to leave in place a $35 million settlement his law firm negotiated to resolve a class action lawsuit against Ford. At the hearing, Michael Kirkpatrick of Public Citizen, a nonprofit consumer group, argued that the proposed settlement provided a sweet deal for Ford, but a raw deal for its customers. Ford customers claim in legal filings that their 2012 to 2016 Focus and 2011 to 2016 Fiestas were built with dual clutch transmissions prone to shuddering, slipping, bucking, jerking, hesitation while changing gears, premature internal wear, delays in downshifting, and in some cases, sudden or delayed acceleration. And what's odd about this, I remember early on in this phase of these cars getting on the roads, I flew to another city and rented a car. And unbeknownst to me, they'd given me a Ford Focus of this time frame with a dual clutch transmission. And I got in it, and I immediately noticed that it was slipping, and it was occasionally, woo, but the tachometer would jump before it caught gears. And I've told the story before. I picked up my brother. We went for a drive. He goes, dude, stop that. And I go, stop what? And he goes, wait, you're not just messing with me? I said, no. And he goes, What's happening? I said, that's the transmission. And he goes, you're kidding me. I go, no, watch this. And I would just hit the gas, and the tachometer would jump. The car wouldn't go. And also the car would catch. The car was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And that's just what they do. In a statement to the Free Press on Wednesday, Ford said, we are committed to providing our customers with top quality vehicles. We continue to deny the allegations in this lawsuit, but rather than continuing with litigation, Ford entered into a settlement agreement with lawyers representing these plaintiffs. That settlement is fair and appropriate, and we look forward to final court approval. Judges are deciding now whether to uphold or throw out the settlement. Lawyers involved with the case say a ruling will likely come by December. See, courts don't move fast. Judges challenged Wu on whether the deal he negotiated was fair and if the lower court correctly assessed the value of the settlement. Wu said yes, noting previous courts have upheld class actions as being fair when only 3% of the plaintiffs were compensated, as he worked to bring closure to his case, which he filed in 2012. So this case was filed, my friends, 7 years ago. Now, less than 3 weeks after the California hearing, Ford warned its shareholders of legal exposure in an SEC filing under a subhead called Consumer Matters. And it said, we are currently a defendant in a significant number of litigation matters relating to the performance of vehicles equipped with the DPS-6 transmissions, said the last item on a 70-page document signed by the Ford Vice President and Controller Kathy O'Callaghan. She writes, we are a defendant in numerous actions in state and federal courts alleging damages based on state and federal consumer protection laws and breach of warranty obligations. Remedies under these statutes may include repurchase, civil penalties, and plaintiffs' attorneys' fees. In some cases, plaintiffs also have included an allegation of fraud. Kirkpatrick said the timing would suggest that Ford thinks the settlement is going to be vacated. That's what we've asked the Court of Appeals to do, and we're hoping that they send it back down to the district court. And he says they have this huge liability they thought they had put to bed through a class action settlement that was exceptionally good for them. Now, if history is any indication, Ford might have some issues. A California jury awarded Ariel Myers of Los Angeles over $500,000 after finding that Ford acted with malice and committed fraud by concealing that the transmission in his 2014 Ford Focus was seriously defective, inducing him to purchase the car despite a history of massive numbers of transmission failures, according to a news release. And this was issued a year ago by the Consumers for Auto Reliability and Safety, whose acronym, of course, is CARS. Within 3 days of purchasing his car on July 29th, 2014, the transmission began to slip and shudder. Myers went back repeatedly to the dealership for repairs, but the transmission continued to overheat, slip, and make the car dangerous to drive. Myers said that he needed the car to get to work and take his mother to dialysis. When the transmission overheated, his mother missed her appointment as they sat on the side of the road for help. When Myers sought a refund, Ford refused, but just before the trial jury was selected, Ford admitted its violation of the Lemon laws, according to the consumer advocacy group. Ford has appealed to Myers' judgment, Kirkpatrick said, but remember that Ford agreed to pay Myers $131,000 on the breach of warranty claims, not even counting the fraud claims. So either way, it's a six-figure judgment on a car that didn't cost that much. And that's just one person, as the Freep writer notes. Yes, we call it the Freep. In addition to the class action case, an estimated 1,200 individual consumer fraud cases are pending in California. Just 1,200 consumer fraud cases in the state of California by itself. And while cases have been simmering in the U.S. is not the only place where Ford is having issues. They've been penalized globally. The company engaged in unconscionable and misleading or deceptive conduct and made false or misleading representations in its response to customer complaints, according to the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. They hit Ford with a $10 million fine, but that's 10 million Australian dollars, only 7.5 US million, on April 26, 2018, in response to the company's handling of thousands of complaints between May of 2015 and November 2016 in Australia. That is one of the largest fines in Australian history handed down under consumer law. The fine in Australia also covered complaints involving Ford EcoSport owners In most cases, Ford refused to provide a refund or a no-cost replacement vehicle to consumers, even after vehicles had undergone multiple repairs that had not resolved consumers' complaints. That's Rod Sims, commission chairman, speaking back then. Ford told customers that shuddering in the vehicle was a result of the ways that buyers had been driving. They blamed this on you. They say, you're driving it wrong. You're driving it wrong. And you say, wait, I've been driving cars for 30 years now, 40 years now, and I'm driving your car wrong? What am I doing wrong besides putting it in gear and expecting it to go? Ford acknowledged at the time we took too long to identify the issues, and we acknowledged that PowerShift customers did not have complaints handled appropriately. We were overwhelmed with the volume of complaints. Our processes were inadequate and information provided was either inaccurate or incomplete. We let our customers down, and for that we are sorry. So they apologized. I think at least to the Australians. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, has received more than 1,000 consumer complaints involving Ford Fiesta transmissions on vehicles built between 2011 and 2016. The situation is the focus of a class action lawsuit in California, we just talked about. But now Ford awaits a ruling on the class action settlement involving 1.5 million current and 400,000 former owners. And just so you know, one solo plaintiff did win more than $130,000. So the question is, do you really want 1.9 million people bringing these actions one at a time? So there are some people who are unhappy with this proposed settlement, and quite frankly, we tied up for years. I don't know what to tell you. Wu, the original attorney handling the class action that was purportedly settled at one point, says that if everyone were to actually submit a claim, Ford could be facing $4 billion with a B, $4 billion in liability. So he says that, we're trying to get this thing settled. In case you're curious, the company issued more than 20 technical service bulletins relating to the Focus and the Fiesta models, with none of them being a consistently reliable repair. That's according to Car Scoops, apparently a website. Ford extended the powertrain warranty from 5 years, 60,000 miles, to 7 years, 100,000 miles. They did that back in 2014, but they never issued a recall or offered to buy back the vehicles on their own, but they never do that. The transmission system, in case you're curious, replaces a traditional automatic transmission and was marketed as having efficient and fast shifting gears. But those efficient and fast shifting gears resulted in thousands of complaints being made to NHTSA. And like I said, many people going to dealership and complaining. My passengers complaining when I rented one, saying, "Are you messing with me?" No, I'm not. It's just a Ford PowerShift transmission. And as many of you know, I am a big booster of Ford Motor Company. I drive a Ford Explorer. I plan on buying another one this year. But, there's no question that dual clutch transmission was a problem. And I'm sorry for anybody who bought one. And, I handle a lot of cases for people who had them. Now, of course, as these cars get older, they're falling out of the range where attorneys can help you. Hopefully you got that extended warranty to help you out. But I'd like to see a class action that gets people something of substance. But like I said, the class action in California, it's been going on for 7 years now. It's up on appeal. And they say that they might not have an answer to the current appeal till December of this year, which puts it right around Christmas and the New Year's of the year 2020, which is way down the road it seems, but it ain't that far away, I guess. So that's the situation right now with the Ford class action. People ask me from time to time what happened with it, and I tell them, like everything else in the court systems, it's languishing, it's dragging, it's grinding along. The mills of the gods grind slow, my friend. They grind slow but sure. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.